Latinas, though, I'm serious. It's like every day I see some angelic chica who, when once I do, becomes tied with 10,000 other women, all of whom share the title for the most gorgeous female which I personally have ever beheld in my presence. And she works at Walmart or Panda Express or some other thankless trap that a Caucasian female of equitable prettiness wouldn't be seen working at for double the wage and for always at time and a half. Oh, senorita, oh, if only you could see my love for your humility. That's what makes all this enmity so thoroughly disheartening. My guise, though, is grandiose and therefore not agreeable, and beyond bizarre, so more so unbelievable. But trust me, you would see it too if all these things were aimed at you. For perhaps I tilt at windmills, and I too, like a semiconductor, merely attract coincidences of strange precision. Yet I perceive an enemy. But I'll let you decide. I'm driving right now, up Route 31. That's coincidence. They can't. Or rather, wouldn't. Waste time to manufacture that. That would be pointless. They would only influence such decisions by synchronizing congestion onto the alternate courses as I approach the point of each option and giving me green lights going this way. Except they'd never do so for such arbitrary purpose. But also, I've traveled this same circuit over the sequence of this same itinerary 6 times before, over the past 6 weeks prior to this. So that takes away some of Weird's wonder. It just seems to accent well how the omniscient and I celebrated this void day. Besides, on this day last year, I might have driven on Route 30, as I would 100 times and more thereafter, over the year between then and this day here again right now. In recurring coincidence throughout, to be 30 on 30, yet no special significance did I discern then, nor once until this day roundabout. Now, I've been passing by, going 30, while 30 on 30, then, maybe. Because you see, it cubes the coincidence, or would if I wasn't in control of my carriage rate. And morons believe in nonsense because they're stupid. I've just left the donation center a short while ago. Prostitution via plasmapheresis. Whoring my liquid life force for less than 5 cents per milliliter. Blood Daddy's bottom bitch turned me away though, and so may as well have turned me out too. Not long since leaving, but already the episode's more dramatic disappointment has me deeply distracted dissecting it, and pondering how relations degraded unto this present nadir, and whatever compelled all this hostility in the first place. I took a moment in the parking lot to pack something for myself, which combustion byproduct, by inhaling, I consumed, as I exited off the crumbling blacktop surface of peeling parallel lines of yellow paint onto the road of my riding, prior that I turned onto this present passage of my doubly prime age. I'm in no hurry for the morning to move forward, or my day to proceed at this early hour. Not because I consider the day special, or that I'm trying to praise the date or jubilate. I just have little impetus to adjourn the day's more joyful social agenda, or so soon sojourn the rest of it secluded in the basement that's already cold with winter's early start. Plus, I'm sure that my aunt won't very much mind my monopolizing her car more than my usual minimal manner on this grave and morose anniversary, which special yearly day normal people normally celebrate for themselves, but not by themselves. And I had a rich, full birthday planned for myself. Not big fun, but better than being alone all the while. But now, a full third at least, of the pretense for my starved social interaction to interact socially, and my reason for being present among people in public, is evaporated. All right, I'm driving my aunt's car right now, so... I'm driving my aunt's car too now. Now too, so, fuck my ugly life and this Fuck my ugly life in this bleak, morbid day that remembers its beginning, and which would have done better for myself to have instead on this day breached the womb as body, but dead to heartbeat, and untimely bereft before ever breath was taken. My car, it's back at Damien Auto. I got it back on Tuesday night after dropping it off at the independent shop over 3 weeks prior to that, which patience cost me almost a month of limitation, but saved me several $100s over taking it into a franchise garage. And it died, my car did, on the way into work the next day. So I had to have it towed back to dipshit's shitty shop, where it's been now for 2 days with this third morning. Ugh, god damn it. Whatever. At least it gave me a reason to quit the busy bee. That place was a shithole. Its only relevance to this present expiation, though, was its complete lack of Hispanic employment, which absence is undeniably surprising in itself, given the hope-crushing economics of its occupation, but there it is. Respondent, that is, correlative, to the confrontational, combative tone of the quiet climax, which tension culminated the scene that just transpired at the plasma center. The current cataclysm of my cannabis-induced introspection is nothing unusual. I'm pondering the possible repercussions that might arise from it, imagining how it might be seen in the eyes of others after its portrayal on some bullshit like the nightly news. And so right now, all I foresee is self-imposed catastrophe. They're just looking for a reason to put me in a cage. And if I'm not careful, my own mouth is going to give them all the justification they need. As such things can be so easily misconstrued and misquoted and misprinted upon the social ledger's long record for some angry tendency or a volatile or aggressive or even a potentially dangerous, harmful, or angry tendency. Dangerous, harmful, or reactionary temperament, and so acted upon at the behest, or on the better behalf, of the public's better safety. That insomuch that some subjects are intrinsically explosive in and of themselves, I'm playing with fire in a room full of dynamite. I'm contemplating my behavior just now in terms of mental pathology, pondering, too, the parameters of clinical inclination. And the public's discretion to impose precaution upon somebody deemed different, even deviant in nominal habits, or strange in behaviors arbitrary but not impactful upon anybody else, or detrimental to anyone's life, liberty, stuff, day, or dignity, nor to any other life at all dangerous, directly whatsoever, but worrisome only to the modern design of oligarchy, to keep dumb fucks stupid, to which rich elite all light needs be darkened, not for that it should shine on the deaf, dumb, and blind, and so go unperceived, but for that it might illuminate upon the oligarchical juggernauts themselves, to expose their void, empty value and the fool's gold idolatry that they impose before the innumerable masses, upon whose simplicity their demigod status and prosperity relies, and that the sightless should understand that they weren't denied vision, that there was merely so little light in this great darkness to behold, and that those without hearing should realize that only for the insurmountable volume of today's loud chaos chasm of meaningless gray noise were they once without sense to sound, and the dull should discover that they lacked not capacity, but that their daily concerns were irrelevant and too far detached from the prerogatives of those that exert overwhelming influence and control over them. Lest the ocean of fish should disregard what vultures value, or what a single flock of buzzards believes, lest society should stop caring how money feels about things, or how the view from the top should seem, or how wealthy anomalies would have the rest of the statistics consider their numerical insignificance above them, lest the masses should start formulating their own thoughts and forming their own opinions and thinking for themselves and making their own decisions, lest the countless programmed human drones should begin listening to wisdom and reasoning reasonably and perceiving truth, and should start to hear and think and see at last, and become no longer deaf, dumb, and blind. And even as Pharaoh and his consorts at the pinnacle of the pyramid, who, though spread separate over the whole face of the earth's four corners, like the lights of heaven, yet ascend unanimous unto the stars' place at the zenith of the sky, and so agree to the agenda of their great height, that gigantic mass generates the gravity that both maintains the integrity of the cosmos and keeps less aggregate weight upon the ground. Even as God King Man Pharaoh and his entourage of special people should look upon a shepherd and see an abomination, for that giving guidance to impressionable sheep threatens both the thoughtlessness on which their slavery thrives, and the ignorance on which the survival of the status quo relies. Unto so, though, that this initial scrutiny, and my remorseful misgivings as I evaluate my actions at the plasma center just now, are not inspired by a present moment of clarity or the levity that so often settles in after the fact, following a crucial error in conduct, or because I fear or feel that I fall under the description of such damning demographic, but that the mental health industry too is merely another snake on Medusa's head, or a fang at least upon the greater serpent medicine. In fact, compare the two names, so sinisterly similar, the Medusa medicine, and medicine of emblem Medusa. But for that too, victimization complex presumes an exaggerated ego, which is rarely reinforced with proportional virtue, calculated unto its own presumption via reasonable antecedent in regard towards rivalry's risk and reward incentive, in thusly victimizing said victim, if said victimization should prove valid, or concluded with objective linear logic, but more usually merely adopts only an inflated sense of self, which person and their point of view seems today all too easily and commonly found, and just as frequently is formulated of its buoyant fume on false premise, but which exaggerated ego, regardless, most people detest if they're not also in possession of, and so will not legitimize with agreement or validate the theory of the surmiser as though they, or any other person, were worthy of the special attention required of conspiracy when they themselves are not, and despise more so if in possession they are, and despite the fact, for that in another person their own pantomimes appear more pronounced, and so they hate in another what repercussions should exhibit as manifest of the same self-absorption that they recognize, now somehow more tangibly, through the weird mirror of man as himself in another, and which now they hate in themselves, yet neglect to acknowledge notwithstanding, nor shall ever endeavor to rehabilitate, and so shall never readjust. The victimization complex presumes, too, in the same vein, a paranoia that's faulty first and foremost, in the eyes of and unto divulgence and speculation, and I think unfairly, for that man is an awful monster, and loathsome and reprehensible always. And someone owes me a soda pop if I'm right, but I wouldn't put it past, or more appropriately underneath, his repugnant species, or beyond his deplorable recent breeds, the first class of American Nazi, probably right at the start of the 60s, right as they were getting ready to kill Kennedy. Right as the first generation of post-World War II German agenda American infants was coming of age and becoming hot with its angry adolescent modern chemical hormone, just to cause and so create a new yet suddenly recurring precedence of cultural delusion and a booming population of personal psychosis, but unto an apathetic public susceptibility, to be then easily molded licentious with labels of lunacy and quick dispatches to the loony bin, if once and finally deemed lightly dopey, and so diagnosed deranged, though perhaps merely different, or sinister, though just insomniac, or dangerous for being a free thinker. But I wouldn't doubt that the paramilitary captains in every local town, maybe during the Sauerkraut Festival or Oktoberfest, who came sauerkrauting in over the decades prior to when said brats had to then return to the fatherland to fight against it, as now American sons against their Germanic paternity. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that these cousins of the Spartan, angry since D-Day that he helped to defeat Daddy's designs and the fatherland of his father's Führer, yet plotting premise patiently also ever since, under a collective pretense of subversion and perversion among Jerry, in America as they subtly lay the groundwork for World War III. In fact, now I even bet it that the Bratwurst, paramilitary captains instructed the first generation of Germanic municipal Nazis, natural born in America, as they approached their respective high school graduations, maybe, the ones maybe that displayed little inclination beyond.